A pleasant morning to each and everyone. By the way, I am Janmark Lapiz and I am one of the reporters for the topic using research as a teaching strategy. But before we proceed to our formal discussion, let us define first the word research. So it is from the old French word recherche, meaning to investigate thoroughly. Also, research defined as seeking through methodical processes to add to one's own body of knowledge and hopefully to that of others by the discovery of non-trivial facts and insights. I firmly believe that we are researchers in our own ways because we humans are innate curious about everything. We always ask for why and how, and we tend to figure out for that specific answer only to satisfy our curiosity and also our being. And that's what research does, that lead us into acquiring new knowledge and finding out solutions or profound answers to a problem and somehow draw our own conclusions out from it. The definition from the previous slide conveys the idea that research has two important components. Number one, inquiry that is carried out systematically and purposefully, meaning to say there is a process or step-by-step procedure to be followed. And most importantly, you know your purpose, why you need to do your research. Number two, inquiry that focuses on revealing some new knowledge. Basically, we learn new knowledge through the data that was gathered and analyzed. And now, these are the important steps in any research. Number one, clear purpose. Know your purpose well. Ask yourself, how will this research benefit other people? Is this relevant in the current times? And that being said, we must formulate a question that we will answer. Number two, detailed plan. So there must be a detailed plan for trying to answer that question so that research will be systematic. Number three, data must be gathered and analyzed. So data must be gathered and analyzed in an attempt to answer the question so that the new knowledge can be revealed. Lastly, conclusions must be reached. It is either to answer the original question or to explain why we could not find an answer. To use student research as a teaching strategy, you have to help the students understand and work through each of those stages so that they can learn how to investigate, experiment, relate information, and draw logical conclusions. And now, the three approaches to research. Number one, research based on finding, interpreting, and using information that has been produced by someone else. The best example for here is research about historical accounts and compare them to research that use existing information or what we call the secondary sources, even though that information might be reinterpreted to provide a new perspective. Number two, research based on gathering, interpreting, and using information that did not exist before the research was conducted. This could be exemplified by a research that involves interviews and draw conclusion out from it. Next, research based on some form of experimentation. It is often called true experimentation. Uses the scientific method to establish the cause and effect relationship among group of variables that make up a study. So here's a tip. When student research is used as a teaching strategy, the research question should focus on important issues to which the students can relate, but which the students do not fully understand. Otherwise, there is no point of doing research then, right? Next, when and why should research be used as a teaching strategy? So here are some of the advantages of using research as a teaching strategy. Number one, research encourages the learners to ask questions, to investigate, to discover, and to create answers for themselves. So it helps learners to be more independent, who believe they are capable of understanding complex issues and discovering new knowledge by themselves. Number two, research can enable the learners to develop a deeper level of understanding. It encourages them to strive for more than superficial learning. Next, Research helps the learners to progress from what they already understand to what they need to understand. So it encourages them to be metacognitive, or knowing about knowing. Next, research can challenge, engage, and extend all the learners, not just more capable learners. So doing research is not just for capable learners, it is for everybody. We are all capable in doing research that challenge and engage us into different social issues. Next, research encourages the learners to be skeptical about ideas that others present as facts. So this encourages learners to view knowledge as problematic, to recognize that there are still unresolved problems and unanswered questions. Next is research encourages critical thinking and reflection. Both are extremely important in the context that we have extensive amounts of information that are available online. And with this, we would be able to identify information whether a source is credible or not. Next, research can provide a meaningful context for the learners to use and develop their communication skills. So it helps the learners develop not just oral communication skills, but also their reading and writing skills, which would also derive to increase their level of comprehension. But before I end up my part, always remember, in using research as a teaching strategy, as teachers, we will not exactly tell our learners what the knowledge is. Rather, allow them to discover, explore, and experiment knowledge by doing research or study. However, they need to understand that they are not just doing an exercise. They are engaged to deepen their understanding. And also, always remember that with research, we can find answers to the things that are unknown. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something from my report. Thank you.
Good morning everyone, I am Erica May and Magdalera, and I am going to continue the discussion entitled When and Why Should Research Be Used as a Teaching Strategy? Research can help the learners develop their organizational and time management skills. Yes, effective time management and organizational skills can have a positive impact when we learn to take control of our time on a daily basis. It improves our ability to get things done, make better decisions, and gain ultimate control of our key priorities such as the research. Next is, research can be a fun and motivating way to learn, particularly for the gifted learners. Fun has a positive effect on motivation levels, determining what we learn and how much we retain. If the experiences is fun, learners will still curious and keep coming back for more. The next is, research can give the learners experience working in the way professionals work. For example, your students want to become doctor, nurse, scientist, etc. It can help the children to become young scientists, doctor, and nurse. Next is, research can help the learners understand the essential nature of a field. It can help them understand that science is a process of creating laws, models, and theories that enable one to predict, explain, and control the behavior of the world. The mathematics is more about the study of patterns and relationships that it is all about numbers and calculations. The next one is research that requires the students to think in different and deeper ways can help them understand and remember important ideas because the information they are grappling with is embedded in a meaningful context. Through thinking deeply, we can create and entertain thoughts that are more meaningful and valuable. Next is, research can teach the learners on how to make use of the sources of information that are available in their local community. Example is, seeking of information through books, encyclopedia, magazines, databases, newspapers, library, catalog, and internet. Next is, research can be an effective way of getting the parents involved in their child's education. This can start with simple things such as having the students interview their parents on a designated topic and then sharing the data so that the class will be analyzing the pooled data to answer a research question. Next is, research provides the teachers with an opportunity to stand back and observe the learners to analyze the ways in which they interact with one another and to reflect on their learning styles. With this new knowledge, the teacher's primary role should be to help the students learn how to think rather than teaching them how to remember. Next is, research projects provide an ideal opportunity for you to help the learners develop their computing skills and their familiarity with modern technologies such as the internet. In turn with this, technologies provide very useful tools to assist the learners with their research. Technology provides students with easy-to-access information, accelerated learning, and fun opportunities to practice of what they learned. This is exactly where technology shines. Students' research is not always appropriate in all occasions. There are some limitations to this strategy. It shows the advantages and limitations of students' research as a teaching strategy. Use student research if first is the outcome you want the students to achieve are readily related to issues beyond the classroom. Learning outcomes are statements that describe the knowledge and skills of the students. The students understand why that knowledge and those skills will be useful to them. And the second one is, use student research if the learners have sufficiently high prior knowledge to guide their own learning. Yes, it is important by using what students already know, and it helps the teachers to assist students with the learning process because it gives him or her an idea of what students know and what they still need to learn, and it helps make connections to the new information. The third one is, use student research if the students are self-motivated and can learn with minimal assistance. Self-motivation is a vital skill to adapt. It is an important quality for the students to learn and excel in students. This helps in igniting their minds to achieve goals. And the fourth one is, use student research if you want to encourage the students to take a deep approach to learning. Apply knowledge by applying and testing academic learning. How? Through learning necessitates reflection, both formative and summative assessment of learning, and a learner and community-centered learning environment that facilitates a deep approach to learning. And the fifth one is, use student research if you want the students to learn how to enjoy learning. The teacher tests their teaching strategy to make his students more energetic and fun to be with. And the sixth one is, use student research if you want to encourage the students to be independent learners. Independent learning is when students set goals, monitor and evaluate their own academic development so they can manage their own motivation towards learning. And the last one is, use student research if you want learning to be driven by the students' curiosity. Curiosity makes the brain more receptive for learning, and that as we learn and enjoying the sensation of learning. Curious students not only asking questions, but also actively seek out the answers. And let's proceed to, do not use student research if, first is, the students lack the basic skill to work independently or in small groups. The second one is, the students have very poor literacy skills. And the third one is, the students do not have access to the equipment or information they need to produce worthwhile data from their research. And the last one is the you cannot allow the students sufficient time to complete the research task. According to Charles F. Kettering, that research means that you don't know, but are willing to find out. That's all. Thank you.
Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Jhousie Martinez and I am here to present my topic about how to use research as a teaching strategies. Research. Research is very much a student-centered approach to learning, but it is not something that you should expect your students to do totally independently, because it is not sufficient to simply give them the research questions and leave them on their own. Instead, you have to plan each phase of the research carefully and prepare your students by making sure that they have all the skills and the research project is structured nicely that will develop the skills of the students. You have to plan carefully for each of these things. You might proceed as follows. Decide exactly what you want the students to learn. You should have clear learning outcomes. Develop a suitable research questions or a set of questions that will be the focus of the students' research activities and that will help them achieve the desired learning outcomes. Identify what prior knowledge and skills the students will need in order to conduct the research. If necessary, teach prior knowledge. It may involve teaching for research, developing the students' understanding of the subject, and teaching about research. Developing the students' understanding of how to do research. Identify a number of strategies that the students might use if they are to be successful in their research, and be prepared to recognize and encourage the students who use these approaches. Plan the lesson in which you will introduce the students to the research exercise. You need to explain what you want the students to learn and what you expect from them during this research. Plan how you will monitor the students' progress. This should involve at least being able to identify the parts of the research exercise that are likely to cause the most difficulties for the students, decide what difficulties might be, and develop some strategies for minimizing these difficulties. Make sure you have arranged for the students to get appropriate access to equipments, documents, or people so that they can gather the data necessarily for their research. Plan how you will assess what the students learn from the research. Plan how you will evaluate the research activity. It is also important that you prepare the students for their research. You can consider these guidelines. Explain carefully to the students why you are using this teaching strategy and what or how you expect they will learn from it. Spell out your expectations and check that the students understand such thing as when they will be doing the research, how much time it will take, what sort of things they will be doing, what type of product you expect them to produce, how you will assess their learning, whether you expect them to work in teams or individually, and what you will be doing while they are engaged in their research. Ensure that the students have the necessary communication and social skills to work effectively together. As much as possible, we need to involve the students in planning process. Motivate them by showing the research that has been done by your previous students or students from other batches in the campus so that they feel motivated to do the research project and consider it as a meaningful experience. Students will need to work through 8 distinct phases in their research activity. They will have to clarify the purpose of the research so that they understand exactly why they are doing their research and what outcomes they are supposed to achieve. Develop their research questions. Develop a research strategy, for example, the case study, qualitative interviews, quantitative surveys, and action-oriented research. Filter, organize, analyze, and evaluate the information or data. Locate information or gather data that will be used to answer the research questions. For example, case studies, checklists, interviews, observation, surveys, or questionnaires. Develop an answer to the research question. Report the results of the research in an appropriate way. Evaluate the effectiveness of the research strategies, including the way the results were presented, so that they are better prepared for their next research project.
Good day, everyone. My name is Sheena Jaudines. Today, I'm going to talk about the guidelines for student research. But before that, I'm going to tackle about first the minimum guidance that a teacher needs to do if they want research as a learning strategy to his or her students. To help students do these things, you'll have to provide a carefully structured learning environment, particularly if your students have not had much experience with this learning strategy. The minimum guidance you will need to give the students if you want them to learn through research is a well-defined and realistic issue or problem to be investigated, issues or problems that are existing, relevant, or something realistic. Assistance with developing and or refining the research questions. Suggestions about how they might get started. Teach them how to delegate tasks for each member of the group. Assistance with developing a research plan. A clear timeline for the research. Set deadlines by which key parts of the research must be completed. Some self-checking guidelines so that they can monitor their progress. Guidance on data gathering and data analysis. Suggestions about the presentation of the research findings. Insist that the students develop their research report as they gather information and interpret it rather than leaving it all until the research is complete. Guidelines about participation and collaboration so that they can effectively exchange information through reading, writing, speaking, and or listening. Details like rubric to show the students how their learning will be assessed. When using student research as a teaching strategy, you will need to give your students clear information about what they are required to do and what their expectations are. Now, I'm going to talk about the guidelines for student research, especially if the students are working in groups. Number 1, discuss the research question and make sure that everyone in your group understands what the research question means. Number 2, make a list of the things that you think you will need to find out or do in order to answer the research question. Try to express those ideas as questions. Number 3, arrange the list in order from the first thing you will do to the last thing you will do. Make a brief note about how, where, and when you will do each of the things on your list. Don't forget that different members of your group can be working on different parts of the problem at the same time. Number 4, decide which members of the group will be responsible for each item on your list. Number 5, decide how will you help each member of your team learn about the issues that other team members are investigating, and how you will help each team member achieve the learning outcomes. Number 6, decide how you will properly present the results of your research. 7, start gathering the information you need to answer the question. 8, share the information that you gather with other members of your group so that everyone is satisfaction that the information you have gathered is what the group needs. Number 9, keep a simple record to show the progress your group has made. Number 10, organize and or analyze the information you gather so that you can answer the research question. 11, prepare a report of the results of your research. And lastly, number 12, evaluate the research efforts of your group by considering how well you were able to answer the research question and how will the group work as a team. Make a list of the things that you would do differently next time you are working on a research project.
We have here a sample lesson plan. For the topic, forces that affect changes on the Earth's surface. Subtopics are earthquakes, volcanic eruption. Grade level, grade 6. For the learning competencies, the learner should be able to describe the changes on the Earth's surface as a result of earthquakes and volcanic eruption, and enumerate what to do before, during, and after earthquake and volcanic eruptions. In this lesson plan, we use the 5 E's. The first one is engage. Give trivia, research updates, or news about recent earthquake or volcanic eruption in the country. The next one is explore. Discuss the entire chosen research article about an earthquake or a volcanic eruption. Explain the parts of the research and their contents. Ask for the students' views and comments. The next one is explain. Provide more examples and explanations of interesting and significant research articles, especially in physics. Motivate and encourage your students that they can also do research and they can contribute to the scientific community. The next one is elaborate. Divide your class in groups of 3 or 4. Using the guidelines presented previously, let each group develop a simple research related to the previous lessons in physics or any topic of their interest. The last one is evaluate. Devote 1 or 2 meetings for the presentation of research output. Invite panel members to help you judge their research. Use a rubric to evaluate their presentation skills. I think research is an effective teaching strategy because students are able to investigate and study about issues and problems. It's a strategy that allows everyone to engage, to discover, and to brainstorm. And as a citizen that can contribute to the community.
And that's all for my report. Thank you for listening.